Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to another DM's Guild review, my written and video review series. Take a look at the adventures and supplemental material at the Dungeon Masters Guild website. With this video, I'll be reviewing the race supplement Cosmolyths, designed by Hamilton Ross for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. A review copy has been provided for the purposes of this review. If you enjoy my videos, consider using my affiliate links for your online shopping and supporting me via patreon.com/Rogue Watson. Shoutouts to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Tiny Dancer, Manuel, Wizard Princess, Christopher, Star Loverly, Thomas, L Dugs92, Ian, James, Captain Mike, Jeremy. Gold patrons RPG Papercrafts, Charming Grenade, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Marcos, Dade, Vicente, Gilberto, Adam, Dead Lizard, Lounge, Sam, Aras, Lippy Spuds, Jerome, Fatboy619, Sklenia, Nick, and Farty McButterpants. Thank you all very much for your support. Normally when we think of Celestials, we think of angels, angel-like divine beings, or Asimar, those kind of creatures. Cosmolyths are celestial beings that are literally of the celestial heavens. They're inspired by space and stars and the moon and sun and all this, and planets, which makes them almost alien-esque, but these are not like, you know, giant insectoids or lizard people or whatever you usually think of in terms of alien races. They remind me mostly of space elves, honestly, which is not necessarily a bad thing, and they certainly have a lot of diverse subraces like elves do. In fact, this product includes 7 subraces for Cosmolyths, including one that is like a fallen race, which is kind of similar to it actually is similar to more like the Paladin Oathbreaker, where you have to like unlock it by being a bad Cosmolyth, basically. Although I would think a lot of people would want to go for it because it's game-breakingly powerful, and we'll get into that in a second. It's a gorgeous product. I really love the use of art here, which uses obviously non-D&D art, which I'm always a big fan of, to showcase these very unique looking fairly humanoid creatures. I think they're meant to be, in fact, it mentions they're gender fluid, basically, and androgynous looking, I guess, or can, you know, switch between genders and roles as easily as they need. It kind of reminds me of, I read The Left Hand of Darkness back in college, which had by Ursula K. Le Guin. Excellent, one of the best sci-fi writers, who had, I believe, an alien race that did that as well. They switched genders seasonally. Use of just art is really nice here, with the, you know, stars and the humanoids all starry-eyed and things. It looks absolutely gorgeous, and then the actual, you know, template and layout is like a standard 5e product, which I'm always a fan of. There's some background information on what Cosmolyths are, which, again, very much like space elves, they are aloof. They're beautiful. They transcend a lot of what we would think of mortal cares, and they can travel between stars. It just seems like they're this super powerful ancient race. Like, why on earth would they be bumming around like on the material plane, you know, at level 1 helping people? So there was a bit of a disconnect there for me, trying to determine like why this being that can exist for literally millennia, it would be like a level 1 player character that you would like be fighting goblins and stuff. So I had a little bit of a problem trying to see that work thematically, but the abilities at least seem decently balanced, with the exception of the unlockable one. So Cosmolyths have a +2 to Constitution. They work similarly to Warforged in that they don't have to breathe or sleep, which I always think is pretty nuts. They have dark vision. They basically have all just the good things. They have the trance ability from elves. And then they have all of their sub-races, which is pretty cool because the designer does a good job of pulling different celestial bodies as the themes for these sub-races. So there's one that's based on the sun and starlight. And you've got light powers, essentially. You can... You have disadvantage on stealth checks, which is kind of funny because you're literally glowing, but you can use that glowing power to cast Firebolt once per short rest. And then you can also transform into this light form and become incorporeal, and everybody has disadvantage on you, which is pretty nifty. And on the opposite side of that, you've got moon powers. You can make a weapon moon touched, which I forgot what the rules for that are, but I guess that's maybe good against were creatures. You advantage on deception checks, and then once per long rest, you can cast one of 2 different cloaks that have these different defensive powers against certain conditions. The Nascent is based on like just the emptiness and the darkness of like maybe the vacuum of space, and I really like the way this one is written. I am a sucker for like melodramatic noir descriptive text, and this gives that to me so well. I'm just going to read a little bit about it. You are born of the infinite void between the planets, galaxies, and all matter. You are the background to all things. You are the darkness upon which all resides. You are the invisible canvas of existence. That's pretty cool. And you basically get the ranger ability to hide in plain sight in darkness. You have advantage on stealth checks at night. And then at 3rd level, once per short rest, you can cast Misty Step. I believe almost all of these, if not all of them, have that ability where, and some of the races from the, they're established already, like Tritons and I think Drow, where you actually unlock abilities as you level up, and it's usually just at 1st level you get these, and at 3rd level maybe you can cast a more powerful spell or something. And this takes advantage of that for just about everyone, if not all of them. Maybe it is all of them, where you unlock an additional ability when you reach 3rd level, which is pretty nifty. The Gaian is kind of an Earth, specifically like Earth-like planet, so life in general. Which the weird thing here is you gain an additional con score. So all of these, works like sub-races, where your base race gives you a +2, which in this case is Constitution, and then your sub-race gives you a +1 to something else. This one just gives you another +1 to Con. I don't know if that's kosher to allow a +3 in a single stat on character creation. That seems a little bit questionable. I wonder if that was supposed to be the case. You gain kind of a limited version of Lay on Hands, where instead of 5 per level, it's just 1 hit point per level. And you can also cast certain spells that have to do with food. Create food and water, purify food and drink, and Good Berry. Not necessarily the most useful spells in a campaign like mine, but it's thematically appropriate to the class, or to the subrace. Nebulans are about the nebulas of the galaxy, the concept of birthing new galaxy. It's all like very much celestial bodies that we're getting here, including the rebirth ability, which just comes into kind of a mass charm thing as you create like a nice scintillating color spray around you. The Jutari are literally giant planetary masses, I guess, and in fact they're not even medium sized, they're large size, and they're kind of the guardians of this culture, which has these vast city states, but they have portals everywhere, and you can enter in through these portals, and that's one of the things that this race can do, is just travel between planets and the stars by using these special portals. And then finally there's the Gola, and the Gola are a special race that you cannot select on character creation, and they're only available if a level 10 Cosmolyth has basically strayed from the path. They've done a bunch of destruction. In fact, they have to go through this like trial period where they're like graded on how they've done morally up until that point. And if they have essentially failed that test, which I don't know who's given the test, but then you become a Gola. And the Gola is all about, the destruction and the entropy of the universe. And 2 crazy things happen. One, you, which from what I can tell is permanent, you are immaterial, which means you are resistant to all non-magical attacks. You can move through 5 foot of solid material per turn, and you are invisible in daylight, but in darkness, you're barely visible, but attacks against you still have disadvantage. Holy crap, that's just permanently on. And then whenever you are attacked, and this part is very confusingly worded, but essentially whenever you are struck and you take a certain amount of damage, it says equal to a quarter of your hit points, you can make a con save. And there's a few more limitations, but the idea is that whenever you're hit with a really hard attack, you unleash this like gravity well attack, which is kind of a neat idea, but again, it's just really powerful. Obviously, if your allies are near, they're not going to be a big fan of it, but everybody within like 10 feet of you is drawn towards you and takes like force damage. And that's not a thing that you have any control over. It just happens when you take damage, which is nuts though, and it actually scales as you level up. Those are 2 very powerful. Like one of them is like a auto reaction thing that happens when you're hit, which you know, smart parties could work around, like send that person up there to attack all those people. And the other one is just you have permanent like resistance to all non-magical attacks. You can move through solid manner, and you're either invisible or you got disadvantage against people in darkness. Like, that's crazy powerful. Now, I'm not adverse to the idea that certain races, literally sub-races, cannot be picked at the start because the race can actually evolve into this other form. I think that's an interesting concept, but I think maybe, even though you can't unlock it until level 10, maybe balance that a little bit more to make it not so insane, and make it so players aren't like, oh crap, that's amazing, I want to go for that, because it's supposed to be like, this is like the fallen version of the sub-race, like you're a dangerous like outcast of your version. But let's face it, we're looking at the mechanics and we're going, oh shit, this looks amazing to play, I'm gonna make sure to unlock this fallen version of my race. I really like that the product includes backgrounds. We get 4 backgrounds specifically tied to the Cosmolyth race, and each of these backgrounds has tables for traits, bonds, and flaws. We skipped ideals, I'm not sure, but there's always some confusion on what the difference between a bond and an ideal is anyway. And they just seem very nicely thematically appropriate to what Cosmolyths are. So collectors are acquiring all various like trinkets and goods, and I like that the skill proficiency that you can add to as part of the background, it depends on what you're collecting. So as ancient tomes, you get history. If it's zoological remains, you get nature. The Seeker are just about finding people rather than things and objects. The Keeper is a little bit tricky to do from a player character standpoint, in that you are tracking and keeping, well, you're in charge of these portals that go between all these worlds, which is an odd thing to try to put on a player character, but you get a discount for traveling between them also, which would be a hard thing to try to work around in a campaign. Again, it just reminds me of how difficult this is to even wrap my head around, that you're playing one of these like celestial, all-powerful beings that happens to be scaled down for proper adventuring in the material plane specifically. And then the Wanderer is probably going to be the most useful, which is like you just want to go and explore different planes and different areas, which works out real well if you're an adventurer for sure. So it's odd from a theme standpoint in terms of why these characters necessarily want to be normal adventurers, but if you are looking for a celestial race that actually is more about the literal bodies of heaven, space, and have those kind of themes attached to your character, then this works a lot better than obviously just playing like an Aasimar or something, which is all about the divine, you know, celestial aspect of it and being like of the gods and godly. So I think that part works really well, and it's a really good looking product, and just looks very, very nice and professional, which I appreciate. I really like this artwork. Let's go over my pros and cons for the Cosmolyth race. Pro, 7 sub-races, including a fallen version that you may transform into. Again, I like the concept, I just don't like the actual end result and the balance, which, you know, I'm not playing these things, so I can't comment on like, hey, I played through and this is what happened. It just, on paper, it looks absolutely crazy, but I like all the different options, and they all feel very thematically appropriate to what the designer is pulling from and the ideas of the different celestial bodies. Pros, the 4 Cosmolyth backgrounds, each with tables for traits, bonds, and flaws, is a very nice addition to include at the end. And pro, a professional layout with evocative artwork. I love seeing non-D&D artwork used effectively, and I think that is a very good job here. And I get a good example of what these things look like, as well as just get a nice theme of the spacey humanoids. And the con is about the weird fallen subrace that, again, I like the idea behind it, but the abilities, the fact that you are just basically permanently invisible, resistant to all these things, and then you can unleash this crazy gravity well, as not even any kind of limitations whenever you are hit, seems absolutely... Oh, and I forgot you gain temporary hit points too when it gets hit, because of course, so that seems absolutely crazy. Final verdict, if you want your Celestials more like space elves than angels, including all the wild diversity of elvish subraces, then Cosmolyths has you covered. Thank you to everyone for watching this video review. You can see my written review at roguewatson.com. You can support my work at patreon.com/roguewatson. You can follow our own D&D adventures here on my YouTube channel. Thank you.